Today we are thrilled to be joined by David Barnard. David has been building apps for the iPhone dating way back to 2008, which was the year the iOS App Store officially launched. So he has truly been involved in the app space since the very beginning. To this day, David is still building apps, but he also works with RevenueCat as a developer advocate. RevenueCat is used by the world's leading apps to build, analyze, and grow subscriptions on iOS, Android, and the web. Get ready to learn all about subscription-based apps and numerous techniques to increase app purchases from a seasoned app veteran.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the App Growth Show. I'm Jennifer Sansone from AGN, and today we are joined by David from RevenueCat. Hello, David.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So you are here to talk to us about some very interesting topics, in-app subscriptions, in-app purchases, all things that people always have so many questions about. So let's start off basic. Why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and about RevenueCat?
Sure. So I started building apps for the iPhone pretty much the day Steve Jobs took the stage in 2008 and announced the iPhone SDK. So I'm an indie developer. I actually never learned to code. I started to learn to code, within that week of the iPhone SDK announcement, and then realized that it was going to take more than a few weeks to learn. And so I hired a contractor. And I've released, 25, 27 apps on the App Store now. Had millions of downloads, millions of dollars of revenue over the 14 years I've been doing it. And in 2015, I started transitioning my apps to subscription and released a weather app with subscriptions in 2017 and started beating my head against that wall. It is very complex issue. We had bugs with our subscription management where our monthly subscription wouldn't renew properly. And so we had to completely remove our monthly subscription because of a bug. And I just wanted the developers I work with who, most of them I was either paying hourly or partnering with them, and they had limited time. And I just wanted them focused on building new features. And it was so frustrating to be hassling with all of this monetization infrastructure. And so that's actually how I joined RevenueCat, was that I came to RevenueCat as a customer to help solve my subscription needs. And then one thing led to another, and I started working with RevenueCat in 2019. And so RevenueCat, as I've kind of alluded to already, we are a platform for subscription apps. So we provide in-app SDKs to actually manage the purchases. We provide a sophisticated back end, and we work with some of the biggest apps in the App Store. I mean, Class Dojo and Visco and Cameo, and some of these huge apps. So we do this at scale, but then also have very kind of generous plans for indie developers who are just getting started, where it's actually free up until $10,000 of revenue. So anyway, so we provide the back end to verify subscriptions. That's another thing I was doing in my apps, which is terrible. Any developers listening to this, don't do this. We were doing local receipt verification on device, which is a security issue, and it has all sorts of problems. And it's part of why we had so many bugs. So RevenueCat, we offer server-side receipt validation, all sorts of great integrations too. We also push subscription event data to all sorts of different integrations. So attribution providers, analytics providers like Mixpanel, CRM, and kind of push notification email like Intercom and OneSignal. So yeah, and then we have fantastic charts. We're really building out kind of an end-to-end solution for subscription apps to both manage transactions, and we also integrate with Stripe in addition to the App Store, Play Store, and Amazon App Store, and then have more billing partner integrations coming. So really just if you're building a subscription app, we provide the tools that you need to grow your business.
Great. So you really know this part of the business from all angles, right? Saying from having your own. So you definitely would you would know a good product when you saw it, I'm sure.
Yep, and I still run my I have several apps still in the App Store, so it's kind of fun working inside RevenueCat while also being a RevenueCat customer. I mean, I get the bill every month. They offered me free access, so I was like, no, I want to like experience it as a customer. So I actually pay for RevenueCat every month, just like all of our customers do.
Wow, talk about an insider look. Wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive. So maybe just, maybe for some of us who are a little bit less familiar with the whole idea of in-app subscription, and just how that can be leveraged to grow the business, right? Because with apps, that's kind of what you want to do is build and grow. So maybe just take us through some of the basics of in-app subscription and what we're looking at here.
Sure. And in-app subscriptions kind of have an interesting history as well. When I started on the App Store, you could pretty much you could only have a paid app or a free app, and you couldn't even have in-app purchase. In-app purchase didn't come for a few years later, and then subscriptions didn't come for even a few years after that. And then it wasn't until 2016 that Apple really kind of opened up subscriptions to to apps more broadly. Initially, it was only content apps and fitness apps kind of squeezed in there early. But it's a tremendous way to run a business because you're providing value to users over time. And with paid apps, Apple never created a great way, nor did Google, to charge users for updates. So, I had apps where I charged 99 cents and then I updated them for years. Like my Launch Center Pro app, we had several sales where it was 99 cents. It was regularly like $2.99, and then like at some point we bumped it to $4.99. So I had people who paid me 99 cents up to only $5 was the max price we ever had, and we delivered updates and worked on that app and provided support and had server infrastructure and everything else for. I mean, it's been out a decade now. We launched it in 2012. And so that's another app where I finally did put subscriptions in. And so, as a software creator, subscriptions are a great way to align your incentives with the customer. So if you're not providing value to them over time, they're not going to want to pay a subscription. And that's where I don't think the subscription model actually fits for every single app. But if you are delivering value over time and something that they care about and find valuable, they're going to stay subscribed. And then what that does is that gives you reliable revenue to continue enhancing and building. And, for me, like with a weather app, I have server costs, and we're about to launch an Apple Watch application and widgets for the iPhone and iPad. And that gets really expensive because we pay for every weather data call, and the watch and widgets are constantly pinging and getting updated because you want the freshest, most recent forecast on it right there at a glance. And so, but even for apps that don't have those kind of ongoing costs that really require a subscription or you're going to go out of business, you do have features that you want to build, you have customer support, you have all this stuff that the subscription model helps developers just deliver better value to their customers over time. And I'm just seeing this more and more. We're still somewhat in the early days. Like I said, Apple really only opened up subscriptions more broadly in 2016. So we're only, what's that, like almost 6 years in of people starting to explore this more. And so we're starting to see some really incredible apps be built because of this subscription model. A great example is Photo Room, RevenueCat customer. I had the founder on our podcast, the Sub Club podcast. And it's incredible. Like and they do a really good job on onboarding too, where you launch the app and within a few seconds, they've fully removed the background, like better than I've ever done in Photoshop. And you can take your like product image, or, a lot of their customers are Shopify sellers. And so you can take a random picture of some object and it fully removes the background, it corrects the lighting, and you can put it on a perfect backdrop and like create these amazing product shots right from your iPhone. And so those kind of incredible tools, like you can't build that and sell it for 99 cents one time and then support them for a decade, And so with the with subscription monetization, I know some people are still getting used to it, and there is subscription fatigue, and people like, how many subscriptions am I going to subscribe to? But at the end of the day, if you're delivering true value to people, they're going to pay, and they're going to stay subscribed. And that's one great thing about, Apple and Google both make it super easy to turn off the subscription and cancel it and get a refund, even if you really didn't deliver for you. And so, customers, I think, are getting more and more comfortable with the subscription model because they know they can just cancel it as soon as they're not getting value. So yeah, that's kind of a smattering of I work for RevenueCat. I have subscription apps, so I'm obviously a bit biased, but I think it's just a fantastic model for building software.
So you kind of touched on that it might not be the right thing for everyone. So from a business model perspective, is subscription app always the way to go, or what are kind of some considerations that some things that should be taken into consideration from like the app point of view?
Yeah. So, and again, being Mr. Subscription apps, you probably wouldn't expect me to say this, but yeah, I really genuinely don't think every app should move to subscription, in part because, like what I was saying earlier, is if somebody uses 30 apps a month on their phone and they have 30 different subscriptions, like that just is untenable for most consumers. So I think, I think we all need to be thoughtful about kind of having a blend of revenue model, even in the subscription app. So, for example, we try to have a very generous free tier in my weather app. So, there's people who don't need widgets or complications on their Apple Watch, and that's the most expensive thing for us to provide, and where I think we deliver the most value. But we let you use the app for free, so you can use the app, and we actually are even removing ads. And so I think even subscription apps need to find that sweet spot of, and this isn't going to work for every app, if there are costs or for other reasons, but if you can offer a free tier that does deliver value and either monetizes through ads or just doesn't monetize at all, but you have enough paying users to offset that, I think giving that value for free, one, is a great way to build those habits and have people still use the app even if they don't find enough value to pay. So even in subscriptions, I think there's a blend. And then I think there are a lot of apps, if it's kind of a one-time utility, if it's a simple thing that it doesn't require a lot of ongoing, new features and stuff like that, I think there's kind of simple utilities and things like that probably don't make sense as a subscription. And those are the kind of apps that, consumers do kind of revolt on, and you'll get, more bad reviews and stuff like, why the heck, like I used to have this mirror app. And all it was it like took the front facing camera of the phone, and you could like check your teeth or put on makeup or whatever. All told, it was maybe like 80 hours of programming, very minimal customer support, no server side stuff, very simple app. And, it just doesn't make sense to charge, $5 a year to get access to that. It's like, so in that app, and again, I sold it a few years ago, but there's ads that monetize. And if you want to remove the ads, it's a one-time purchase. And that has wildly compensated me more than I ever invested into that app. It was kind of a total fluke. But so yeah, I think for some, more simple utilities and stuff like that, either some combination of paid up front or kind of ad monetization with a option to just disable ads permanently at a reasonable rate, I think that can absolutely make sense for some apps still in 2022.
So, and we also talking about the different types, like how do you know what's working? We talk a lot about testing, A/B testing for creative and for all of that. So for subscriptions and for this type, is there such a thing as testing? Like, what do you do? How do you know what's working?
Yeah, that's a can of worms. It really depends on what stage you're at. The advice I give to early stage folks is that you don't need to do A/B testing. You don't need to have sophisticated setup. You don't need to pay some service, thousands of dollars a month when you only have a few thousand customers. So early on, and again, I'll actually talk about Photo Room. They went to McDonald's and paid for a burger for folks to check out the app. And so they actually did like in-person user testing to see where people were having challenges with the onboarding. That's what actually kind of led them to do that magical onboarding I was talking about earlier, where it's just a few taps to get you to this like great experience. So I think early on, you really need to rely more on user testing, on, some minimal analytics. Like you want to see where people are getting stuck in the app, where people are dropping off and things like that. Darius Mora from Reflectly, I had him on the Sub Club podcast a while back, and he shared their strategy early on was take big bets. Was, every week they would make some big changes, like they would completely change the onboarding, or they would, add a huge new feature, or, make big bets and look for big results. And once you start to hit product market fit, you'll see it. Like, people will retain better. People will be engaging with the app more. They'll finish your onboarding. They'll, actually start experiencing the product. And until you've gotten to that point and started to scale, I hear a lot of people, wanting to do price testing or paywall testing or these kind of things. And they think, well, if I can get a 10, and realistically, like it's hard to get more than like a 10, 20% improvement unless you take a big bet. But if you're just like changing colors and changing wording, like you're lucky to get a 10%. And when you haven't hit product market fit and you don't have tens of thousands of customers coming in, those little tiny improvements aren't getting you to product market fit faster. You need to take the big bets, make big changes, and don't waste your engineering time trying to get really sophisticated about infrastructure. Now, as you grow and you have some level of product market fit, people are retaining, people are enjoying the app, you see in your user testing that things are going well. That's when you can start to layer on things. And then, once you're at scale, some of these bigger companies like Calm and Headspace and Visco and all these, it's like, then you do an A/B test and you get a 5% lift. And that's huge at their scale. It can be millions of dollars a year by just getting these incremental improvements. So yeah, my advice on that is to kind of recognize the scale you're at, and don't waste engineering resources that could go toward building value for your customers, and waste it on, infrastructure and trying to be super sophisticated about A/B tests and price testing and all these kind of things. Because early on, it's all about delivering value. And that's another thing too, is like early on, it doesn't even necessarily matter what your price is. Like if people are willing to pay, that's a signal. Because whether it's 99 cents a month or $9.99 a month, if somebody's willing to pay you something, you're headed the right direction. And one of the things I had a tweet storm about this recently. I genuinely think paywalls are less important than a lot of people think. Like your product needs to be what makes them decide to subscribe, not your paywall. If you're relying on your paywall to sell the app, you're doing it wrong. And the example I love to give is Calm. Is, when you tap a button that says LeBron James's pregame meditation, it's not the paywall that's selling you. It's a button that says, Matthew McConaughey reads me to sleep. It's, these celebrity endorsements. It's you're bought into meditation, and you're bought into the quality, you're bought into everything before you even hit the paywall. And that's where, Calm's paywall for like 8 years was this super simple thing that a lot of people copied, but what they weren't copying was what was happening before the paywall. So focus on like delivering value to customers and then getting to them to that value. And that's what you need to do early on versus like trying to, do these crazy A/B tests and stuff.
I think that's great advice, super valuable. Because yeah, I mean, so much of the time it's like there's so many things to think about, when at the end of the day, you have to make sure that product is right and you have the right customers. So I think everything you said is really helpful to kind of like reel it in, right? Like where, before you start thinking about all these different things, like where are you? How big are you? Where do you want to go? So that was great advice. I want to talk a little bit now kind of about the future of subscription apps, because that is, the trend, a lot more apps going subscription based. So how do you see that evolving, or or ramping up as we move into 2022 and even beyond?
Yeah, I think, again, I mean, I'm kind of a bull on the subscription app trend. But again, what I've seen, I mean, even in the apps that I use personally, but then especially like, with our customers at RevenueCat who I, interact with frequently, um, it just feels like we're just getting going of what can be built, like the example I used earlier, photo room that helps people, Shopify seller, like they started out as this general tool, but they realized like they really deliver value to people who sell things on Shopify and other stores, because it's saving you time and money and helping you make more money by having these amazing product shots. And so like I never would have thought, a few years ago that a tool like that would be such a valuable business. But what they're doing is they're finding a niche in a market and delivering incredible value to them. And so I think what we're going to see is more and more of those kind of products take off over time, of finding places where you can deliver value to folks. And an interesting thing too is that I think a lot of people don't realize is, saving people money is not the only way you deliver value. Entertainment is value. Assisting in hobbies. Another app I love to talk about is Fishbrain. It's a fishing app, and you would think like, oh, fishing app, what, like, it's an incredible business, in part because they're in a hobby where people spend thousands of dollars going on fishing trips. They spend tens of thousands of dollars on boats. They spend, so much money on fishing equipment, and they spend so much time out on the lake, out on the river, out on the in the ocean and stuff. And so what they've done is they've built this tool that's really valuable to people in that hobby where they already spend a lot of money. And so the price comparison for this app that's like, I think it's like $60 a year or something. It's like, that's not even like a new fishing reel, and if it actually enhances that experience of going fishing. So I think there's just so much opportunity here to deliver value. It's like we've got these amazing little supercomputers in our pocket, and there's just so much more that can be done than doom scrolling Twitter and talking to your grandma on Facebook. And so I think that's what we're going to see in the coming years, is like all these different niches and different hobbies and different ways that people can find value through software. I think we're going to just see all sorts of apps built around that, and that the subscription model is going to enable that. Because again, like you can't build a business selling 99-cent apps. Like I tried, I did for a while, and it worked for a little bit, but I never made that much money, and had to hire contractors. I never made enough to even hire an employee. It's just, it was a tough way to run software. And with subscriptions and having that reliable revenue, and having people willing to pay more when you're really delivering value, I think we're going to see some really exciting apps over the next decade.
I think that's interesting that you're mentioning of the niche thing, because it's true, when people are really interested in something, they are more willing to pay for it. Like, with people with their pets, and I mean,
Yeah.
They always say, like, if you want to make money, you either market to pets or to babies, because like when it comes to that, people just really, they're willing to spend. So I think it's interesting that you say that it will probably go more niche and address very specific needs and interests that people have. It's just a matter of discovering what those are and being the best at it, right?
Yeah. And then there's so many other experiences too that I don't feel like we even have good apps for yet. Like restaurants, you have Google reviews and you have Yelp reviews, and it's kind of like, oh, come on, like, can't rely on them half the time. They don't really like enhance your dining experience. I think we're going to see a subscription app in the foodie realm of like, people, you spend, hundreds of dollars out on a nice dinner. And, I love, trying new restaurants when I'm in new cities and stuff. And I don't feel like there's a great app for like exploring food in a city. Yelp just leaves so much to be desired. I would love to see a subscription app in that realm that I could, pay $50 a year for. And again, it's like, if I spend, thousands of dollars a year eating out, and it costs me $50 to, find better restaurants and know what to order on the menu or things like that. Like, I just think there's so many experiences that software can add value, that the current wave of apps has left a lot on the table. There's just so much, the Yelps and Google reviews and things like that don't do well, that I think, could be really valuable to people. And so, yeah, I think there's so many opportunities.
Great. Well, as we wrap this up, David, I just kind of, you've already given a ton of great advice and suggestions, but, maybe for people who are listening and they just kind of want to take that little final nugget of wisdom away from you, what's that little bit of advice that you would give to someone who's, really at a stage where they just want to take it to the next level, or, what's it going to take?
One piece of advice I've been giving a lot lately is to, with app tracking transparency and kind of all that's been kind of going on in ad targeting and marketing analytics and things like that. 2 years ago, if you could, scale up on Facebook ads, that was just the way to go, because they were so amazing at targeting users, and you had such accurate ways to measure it, and their algorithms were so amazing at doing that. But a lot of those apps are really struggling right now, who got over reliant on Facebook ads specifically, but Instagram and Google and other of these big ad platforms. So advice I've been giving a lot lately is just explore opportunities to market in unique ways. And again, another example from the podcast, I talked to the founder of the Greg app, Alex Ross. He used to be at Tinder, and was part of their huge growth. And so when he founded this company, Greg, it's an app for plant care, and he sat down with his team and thought through, like, how do we reach who is our ideal customer, and how do we reach them cost effectively? Like, what marketing channels can we explore? So instead of just saying like, oh yeah, let's put $100,000 into Facebook ads and like figure it out, they went back and like kind of did the like fundamentals of marketing. And what they figured out, which is like so obvious in hindsight, but it's just so brilliant that they actually did it and came up with it, was that they started partnering with nurseries to put a postcard in with the purchase of every plant that said, hey, you just purchased a plant, like, make sure it thrives, and Greg can help you do that. I don't know exactly the marketing copy, but it's something along those lines. And what was so incredible about that was that it was such a win-win, because for the nurseries, like, they want people to have a success with their product. They don't want to get them returned. And then they want people to buy more plants. And so the happier folks are with their plant, the more their plants thrive, the more plants they're going to buy. And Greg can help with that. And so it was such a win-win, and that has delivered tens of thousands of users. Now they're still working on paid marketing and are going to spend a ton on marketing, but finding those kind of channels where you can like really cost effectively get that attention is something worth exploring. It's not going to work for every app. There's not always those like perfect synergies, but if you kind of go back to the fundamentals of marketing and think, how can we get attention for this app in more cost-effective ways versus just throwing money into the big app platforms? I think every app will benefit from going through that exercise, even if you don't find, this perfect fit.
Fantastic. I don't think we've received that bit of advice yet from any of our guests. So that's great to hear. And I think that's really wise, because people do kind of obsess over the big ones, right? But like you said, kind of bring it back to basics, being creative and creating that win-win. So David, I thank you so much for your time, and you're obviously a wealth of information. So hopefully we can have you back one day and keep talking through some of these interesting topics. But for now, I would like to thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Thanks, David.
Thank you so much for tuning into the App Growth Show today. We hope you were able to take away some actionable insights on how to increase in-app purchases, whether through a subscription-based model or other monetization strategies. If you found today's episode to be helpful, please visit appgrowthnetwork.com and book your free call with us today to supercharge your mobile growth. See you in the next episode. Bye for now.